Colin Wolfe is a legendary composer and musician, most known for his versatile bass work across numerous influential albums and artists, including acclaimed N.W.A. albums at the genesis of West Coast hip-hop and his influential work with Dr. Dre on The Chronic. Beyond his own successful recordings, Colin's playing on keyboards, synths, drums, and guitar can be heard on a range of styles. Hits by Madonna, Tupac, OutKast, Monica, TLC, Boyz II Men, Janet Jackson, Anastasia, Ben Folds, everything from pulsing Michael Jackson, This Time Around and Blood on the Dance Floor, to the dreamy Possibly Maybe by Björk. Colin actually worked on songs with the very same legends that shaped his musical evolution as a kid, such as George Clinton and the P-Funk All-Stars and Aretha Franklin. He's here today, thankfully, to set the record straight about his work on The Chronic with Dr. Dre and talk about some of his favorite experiences in life and music. Direct message to me. I didn't use the Moog on G-Thang. I used it throughout the album, but not on that song. It's a combination of string and flute sound. From Colin Wolfe to me, right after we released the mini Moog breakdown of G-Thang. So Colin's here. How great is that? Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you reached out. And this is a great study in like how perception can lead you into thinking a sound is a certain, or comes from a certain instrument.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's been out there for a long time, right? And I know you know that it's been out there.
Yeah.
And you didn't say too much.
No, I just kind of let it slide until there was really opportunity to say something and set the record straight.
Well, thank you for letting me be that person. It's perfect. And I love setting the record straight. And I'm still glad we did it on Mini Moog because I know there's a lot to learn from these sounds. And that's really the reason for doing it. It doesn't really matter what the instrument is.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to learn how to make these sounds and you're going to apply it to whatever song you're working on. I think that's the point. That's what's relevant about this. But it is fun to go back and trace it. And I'm glad you're setting the record straight. And I'm glad you're sitting in front of an SY99 right now. Because
yeah, well, what we used was actually was a SY77, so it's very similar keyboard, different sounds, and you guys were able to get the SY77 sounds.
Yes, compliments of Rob Rosen at Rosen Sound. He had an SY99 here last week, and we were ready to shoot this video last week. We moved the shoot up. We had to move the shoot a little bit forward a week, but we have the SY77 card. And we can put that on the screen so you can see the presets that you use. So it should make the exact sounds from the SY77.
Yeah, it was a combination of a flute and a string sound. And we were just basically emulating what we heard from the Leon Haywood record, I Want to Do Something Freaky to You. And of course, it was done back in the 70s. And they had a live flute player and a live violin player, or section rather, maybe even. So we were just emulating that, but by it being done on a keyboard, I think it brings it closer to it sounding like a Moog.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the air from the flute or the air from recording from the violins.
Right.
You know.
And you added some portamento that makes it kind of sound like a synth and like a mini Moog.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a great example too of like back then, well, why did you come up with that sound? Well, because we were emulating the sound that it was originally done on, which was flute and string section. So you guys had an SY77 and it had flute and string patches in it.
Exactly. It's paying homage to the original record.
Right.
Basically.
So let's see what it sounds like.
Let's do it.
We have the track, right? So we have the basic track and we can run that and Colin can go ahead and play the tracks. He can play the sounds one at a time because it's two sounds. And, you know, when I was making this sound on the Mini Moog, I pointed out that there was chorusing, how important it was, because I said I heard chorusing. Well, now I know why.
Yeah, by it being two different sounds and playing the same part, it naturally gives it a chorus effect.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's do it. Nice. And what sound was that? What number?
That was C C14.
C14
Yeah.
on the SY77.
Now we're gonna go to D13.
All right.
And that's a white string sound.
You know what? That sounds like it.
Yeah.
We're right there. So when you lay 2 tracks down, right, then you're still going to have to get the balance right.
Yeah, and from what you were saying earlier, by it giving the chorus of, I think if you were to pan them hard left right, you wouldn't necessarily get that chorus effect. Mm-hmm. I think if they're closer together, pan, then that naturally creates some a chorus effect.
Right. So when this was mixed by Dre, right?
I can't remember how he panned it, but I'm just kind of thinking out loud and thinking that, because I know when I do certain things, and like say if I'm doing vocals, and if I naturally do them and leave them straight up, they'll kind of phase themselves out.
Yeah.
But if you pan it hard left right, then you don't really get that.
Right. Well, let's experiment with it. We can see. But Dre mixed it, right?
Dre did mix it, but at the same time, I don't know if we did each sound mono or stereo, because that can make a difference too.
How would you do the sound stereo?
By just recording it stereo.
I think we did.
Just from
we did take the left and the right outputs.
Right. So then we'll just pan them the same
Yeah.
way, and then we'll naturally get that effect. That's pretty close.
Yeah.
And I guess the reason why I said that is because back then we're going on 2-inch. So we only have 24 tracks. 24 is for empty. We put the 808 on 1 because you don't want those 2 things next to each other and knock off this empty. So that means we got only 22 more tracks to go.
Right. Well, you have to have often a buffer track 23 was nothing on it.
Yeah, exactly.
So you wouldn't get crosstalk.
You wouldn't get crosstalk.
So
that's what I'm saying. I don't know if we recorded those sounds stereo. We probably recorded the mono. That's what I'm getting at. Because then you got the bass, you got the loop, then you got the vocals.
Right. Because with Pro Tools, you don't
get
even
the tambourine.
You don't think about tracks. But that's why, another reason why these tracks sound so good, because you have not too many tracks, so you need a good arrangement, and then you have the beauty of tape, where it kind of
the warmth of the tape.
Yeah, it warms it up, and you got a cool song, and something very like when you take a sample and then you put it on tape, and then you put new vocals on it. It kind of has like a magic that happens.
It does.
It does. And then what else did you play on the song?
Also the bass, so electric bass, and of course had to play that from top to bottom. Like I said, 2-inch, no cut and pasting, and we put a tambourine on there. I put a tambourine on there as well.
So you played electric. What was the bass?
It was a Yamaha BB2000. And I took it to John Carruthers back then and had it all tricked out.
So Colin's a multi-instrumentalist, right? You play bass, keyboards,
tambourine.
Any other percussion, drums?
You know what? I think I did the
vibra slap.
Yeah, I think there's a vibra slap on there. I think I did that.
That's you?
Yeah.
So what were you thinking when this track was going down? Something special? Were you getting the feeling?
Well, the version you guys heard was probably the third version, because I think one time it got erased by accident. Another time, the tape got left in the car, and we lived in the valley at the time, so the tape melted. So I think that was probably
those masters went out the window?
Oh, yeah. So I think we had to recreate it like 3 times.
Wow. That's craziness.
Yeah.
Did anybody get into trouble for that?
No, because it was all user error.
But was it a sample of the Leon Haywood song? Like
just at the first couple of bars. So it's the loop and a little voice thing and then the guitar thing, and that's it. And then Dre added 808, and then I added everything else.
So it's switched.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is a very one-time. This is a first-time occurrence for me, and I'm so glad it happened, and that you were so gracious to come in and definitely set the record straight, I think, for a lot of people now too.
Oh, for sure.
And maybe they'll want to break out their SY-77s and, throw back to the 90s. Wasn't this about a 90s keyboard?
No, I think we bought the keyboard during some N.W.A. sessions. So that means it would have been a late 80s keyboard.
So you started on this keyboard. So okay, this is important to know. What was the instrumentation that you were using for the Chronic? And then we'll go back to N.W.A. because I want to know.
It would have been, well, I think the SY-77 was on G-Thang, yeah, but then after that, it was mostly the Moog, guitar and bass.
So there's a lot of mini Moog.
Yeah.
And then the keyboard parts too that weren't just like single line.
I did do some random string things, like especially on them on Dre Day. All these weird string parts that are going throughout the song, and that was on the SY-77. So those would have been the main keyboards. SY-77, the mini Moog, electric bass, electric guitar.
And you play electric guitar too?
My friend did. My friend Eric Borders did.
And that's the extent of all the musicians?
I did it on one song.
Because I thought I read that you played guitar too.
I did it on one song. Yeah.
One song on the album. And then what about the instrumentation before this, working with N.W.A.?
That would have been pretty similar. The Moog was just being introduced, but then there would have been the SY-77. Electric guitar would have been done by Mike Crazy Neck Sims at the time, and then I was doing the bass, and maybe we did a couple of bass synths on there too, but mostly just live bass.
Amazing. So the same tight group of just a couple musicians.
Yeah, pretty much. I think DJ Yella played live drums on one of them. Forgot what song it is, but he played live drums on one of them. But we would have different musicians come down. Back then, Zigaboo from the Meters came down. We jammed one time. Ernie Isley came down one time. We jammed one time.
Did they end up on the tracks?
No.
No, they just show up.
We're just jamming, just messing around.
Oh, it's so interesting to hear how things developed. And it was all hand played, right? No sequencing?
Yeah, no, all hand played. The only sequencing would have been the drum parts.
And MPC?
At that time, not quite yet. I think the MPC on the Chronic album, but before that, it would have been the SP12 or the 808. SP1200 or the 808.
So those two plus some MPC later on.
Later on. But once we got to the MPC on the Chronic album, there was no more SP12.
Everyone moved on.
Everybody moved on. Well, except for the East Coast cats. They love their SP1200s. But they had a great sound though.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Okay, well, I'd like to talk to you some more about some of the other work that you've done, because Colin has played on so many great songs and hits, and he's had a lot of different phases in his career, and he's worked on lots of different styles of music. Quick interruption. Please remember to like and subscribe. I've noticed that more than 75% of you haven't pushed that button, and it really is going to help us continue to bring you people like Colin Wolfe wanting to come in and lay it down for you, set the record straight, tell you the story the way it really was. I enjoy hearing it just like you do. Keep the comments coming. And now back to the video. So Colin, how did you get started with N.W.A.?
I was hired to play bass for a guy who was dating Michelle Phillips at the time from the Mamas and the Papas. And we're playing at the China Club. And as I'm doing a bass solo, in through these big doors come in the whole Ruthless camp. So Dr. Dre, Eazy-E, Jerry Heller, L.A. Dre, Michael Holmes. And they were looking for a bass player to go on tour with Michelet at the time. So it was just perfect timing and just perfect everything. And linked up with them, went on tour, and then once the tour was done, was set and running, was in the studio with Dre for the next 3-4 years or something like that.
So the first time they heard you was playing? They heard you playing?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
As I'm doing the bass solo, they all walked in to the club. And I can see them coming in, but I didn't know who they were at the time. I didn't I didn't listen to rap at this time.
That whole group of people,
Yep.
all the heavy hitters of the time.
Heavy hitter.
And then how did they approach you?
N.W.A did, and he came and started talking to me and was telling me they were looking for a bass player to go on tour with their artists. So exchanged numbers, or pagers at the time.
Pagers.
Sky page at the time. And then I think I hit him up the next day, went down to wherever they were, N.W.A's house or somewhere, and made that connection. And then he was like, you know, and the other cat. So I brought in the keyboard player, brought in guitar player, brought in the two roadies, and it's brought in the whole little crew. And
They trusted you to put the whole thing. I mean, they must have known all the musicians.
they brought in an additional keyboard player, but yeah, they just did trust me
They
with
got the right feeling from you.
yeah.
I can see why. What a start.
And we were opening up for MC Hammer. So this is the Hammer tour, the Please Don't Hurt Them tour. So we were all over the United States.
That's when he was on top, right?
That's when he had a 727 jet, jumbo jet actually. It's a big old plane. And they would fly from each city to city. And sometimes we had the option to hop on his plane if we wanted to. Or sometimes we just felt like getting on the bus and just crashing out and driving to the next city.
And you would just choose.
Yeah.
And you did that for a couple years?
No, that was about a half a year, almost a year or so before the Hammer tour. We went to Japan for a couple of weeks before the tour, and then went on tour with Hammer. And then I'm back to the studio, and we were working on 100 Miles of Running at this time.
And then that led to?
That led to the next N.W.A album, which would be Niggas for Life. And then that led to the Chronic album. And then in between the Chronic album, the Deep Cover soundtrack came to be. So we hopped on that, finished that soundtrack, then back to the Chronic album.
So what was your primary role during all of these albums?
Musician, so playing whether it's keyboards, synth bass, a Moog, melody lines on the Moog, electric bass, some guitar, some percussion. And I was actually getting writing credit too back then.
So we were doing more than just musician and playing. You were writing. So how did that process go down?
That was just nice and natural and simple. Trey would literally put up a beat, and I'd just be like, all right, hit record, and then just start playing something. And usually that's what came out.
Playing something, like could be bass, could it be a melody?
Usually bass. Usually bass.
So
usually bass would be the
with-
first thing. Bass would be the first thing.
So after the drums.
Yeah.
Drums first,
Yeah.
then bass.
Yeah.
Then how the melodies get on there?
After start layering in the stuff, and then you just got in the mindset of composing and arranging. So you knew, okay, we got an 8-bar intro or 4-bar intro, whatever, 60-bar verse. Now here's the hook part. Now play something for the hook part. And then you just map it on like that. You do either 2 or 3 verses, usually 3 verses back then, because back then songs were 5 minutes long back then.
So you were composing the songs, but to multi-track tape, right? Not Pro Tools. So
not Pro Tools.
You can't just move it around.
No. So you're playing it live from top to bottom, and usually I'm getting my stuff done in one take. 2 at the most, maybe some punches.
And you would know like 1 or 2 takes, and you'd know like I'm playing kind of a verse, bass line, and then a chorusy thing, and then you'd make it like 8 bars, and then you'd come back to the verse. That's all going through your head?
Yeah. We're already thinking that, because we're already thinking 8 bars, 16 bars, and 8 bars, and double hook, and this, but then Dre would be coaching me the whole way too, like, but we're all each counting the bars as it's going down as well too.
Yeah, and just vibing on it and saying, this is it, keep going.
Yeah.
Right about, and then like count it down, and then change up onto we need a chorus, or you just kind of know what it needs. And then did the lyrics and the vocal melody just go on top right after that, or
that would come on
how soon?
Afterwards. Well, we would let them vibe, let them hear the track over and over. So they'd be back there vibing out to it. You know what I mean? And that's also what made them so great, because you got Snoop back there, you got the DLC back there, you got Crud back there, Daz, RBX, Rage. So they're all going back and listening to each other and pushing each other. And I think that's what made the writing on that album just so great, because you had all those minds together. And, you know, Doc, the DLC, being the mentor of it all, who's a seasoned writer, songwriter already as it was, so.
And the energy. So sometimes you were all in the studio, like you'd be putting it down while they were in the room.
Yeah, or if
sometimes.
If we're starting to just beginning and layering it down, they might be in the other room talking and shooting dice or just without frolicking, whatever they're doing. But sometimes they would hang out in the room with us,
But that's so old school how things used to be, and then you'd come in, the next group would come in. And,
exactly.
But there's like an anticipation too to that though, because they're relaxing, but they know that there's something they're gonna be lights on. At a certain point in time in the near future.
Passing the baton.
Yeah.
You know.
And then you get to hear what they do. Were you in the room for a lot of it?
I was, because then usually if Dre had to go in to record, I sometimes would be the one recording him. I lined the tape up, ran the tape. I was good at punching because I had a musical sense.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So rhythmically, I can just punch in between the words and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I remember we were talking earlier about post-production, that I liked engineers that were musicians.
Yeah.
It was very successful, that combination. So it makes total sense. But I'm getting the sense it's almost like a family.
It was.
Size, at least. Style.
It was. We worked, met at the studio every day at noon usually. At least that was N.W.A, that was our schedule. Met at the studio every day at noon, Monday through Friday. And we took the weekends off. So now during the Chronic album, on the weekends, whatever song was done, we'd have barbecues and parties, and we'd play the songs and watch people's reactions and see how they reacted to certain songs. Every time it came on G-Thang, it was the same reaction. Just, oh, that's my shit, that's my song.
It was just the group, or there were like
other
new
people, other close friends as well. Yeah, exactly.
And then how much did you make changes to, like adjustments?
Not really.
So most of it was fine?
Yeah, most of it was fine. And unless, of course, the tape got lost or something got erased or something. But for the most part, it was fine, unless we had to clean up some lyrics or something like that. We're working with 2-inch back then, so it's tape. So living in the valley, or being in the valley at that time, well, you leave the tape in the car, it can melt. And that happened with us. One time for G-Thang, whatever reel that song was on, that tape somehow, I don't know who left it in the car, but it got left in the car, and we were living in Calabasas at the time. This is summer. So I mean, like today, it's 101 degrees. So imagine a tape being in there just for 30 minutes is long enough. So it got, tape melted one time, another time it got erased somehow. So the version that everybody hears is probably our third version.
And the other two versions just
as good.
But were the redos the same? Or you guys kind of remembered what you did?
Yeah.
More or less.
No, we did. Exactly remember.
Exactly remember. Just because you had played it on the weekend maybe, or
well, not only that, we're just, like we said, we're just emulating that song. So we're just doing the parts that are in that song. So I know I do at the intro part, and then I know halfway through the verse, are coming with that one melody. Then once we get to the hook, we do the hook melody.
Right.
So by second, third time, we know what we're doing already. We're just
I guess you do
playing all over again.
Because the written music's all in your head then, right? They're all head.
At that time. And like you said, playing it at the party over and over, then it's in your head. So
yeah, because it's an earworm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that song is just, you hear it and it just stays, it's hard to get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It keeps
really catchy song, for sure.
And so It's so interesting though how the songs were created, just basically improvised.
Yeah, well, that one was not, but all the other ones, yeah.
Well, to some extent it was improvised. Like the core of the song was kind of repurposed from
Yeah.
the Leon Haywood version.
But all those parts are in the Leon Haywood song.
But then the melodies and the lyrics.
Right. Well, of course, what they're doing on top of it, yeah, for them. But for musically, it's just all repurposed parts from
Yeah.
the Leon Haywood song.
And you just changed a couple things, like
We
by
just
replay
arranged
the
it.
melody,
Right. Exactly.
adding some percussion,
Exactly.
changing the order of occurrence.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And all that kind of thing.
Exactly.
And maybe in the mix is going to be different too.
Yeah.
The reinforcement of the...
Yeah.
It all adds up though.
Yeah, it does. It
You know.
does.
It's always the little things, especially in that period of time where it's people ask a lot like, well, you know, what's this amazing sound or what's that amazing sound? But it's really the combination of all the little things.
Yeah.
You know, like that's true in a lot of the arts.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like if you take some of those songs and you solo each thing, you be like, wait, that's not what I'm hearing. When you hear it all together, and then it makes that one thing stand out even more.
It does.
It's a kick drum going with the bass, or another part that's going with the bass, or certain things. When you hear them soloed, it doesn't make sense sometimes.
No, but just like in an orchestra, if you were to if you could, you know, solo just an oboe part or a flute part or something, in a symphony, it's like it's doing something that has nothing to do with the main thing that you're hearing.
Exactly.
The melody or the percussion or whatever, like the harmonic sense, you're just hearing sort of these inner lines.
Yeah.
But without them, it doesn't have like the detail.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the fineness. And you guys were working with 22 tracks probably,
Yeah.
right? Because you didn't have all 24 tracks to work
Yeah.
with. You had click or code. Were you using SMPTE code or click?
SMPTE at this time.
But was there a click to listen to?
No. Because
What'd you play to then? Just the
beat,
drums?
The drums, exactly. That's my metronome.
Oh,
that's my
okay,
metronome.
right. Yeah, the SMPTE would drive the drums.
Yep.
So you could reprint the drums if you ever wanted to.
Yep.
And then you
Well, we would track them separately, and we usually put things on certain track. Usually the bass most of the time was on track 10, for some reason. I always recorded on track 10.
maybe it was like, were the drums first?
Yeah.
So maybe you had, 8 tracks of drums
Yeah.
and then one thing of something else?
Yeah.
And then you.
Yeah. And then start layering from that point on.
And the vocals down the end?
Yeah.
So really like workmanlike, because you said take the weekends off,
Yeah.
have time to celebrate, have time to relax,
Yeah.
regular hours.
Well,
And this is
what kind of regular hours?
12 o'clock?
I mean, we would start at 12, and what time we end, who knows?
okay. It's depending on how things are, energy flow
Exactly.
and who's available,
Exactly.
all that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But and this is over the course of how many albums did you stick to that schedule?
Well, we did that through 100 Miles of Running, did that through Niggas for Life, and through the Chronic album.
So for 3 albums, you had basically the same core,
Yeah.
more or less.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't have the artists,
Right.
NWA artists,
Right.
but basically the musicianship and the engineering and
Yeah.
the producing and the arranging. Were there any other people coming in to contribute to arranging?
Not particularly, no.
Just
Dre
you-
was the
you and-
mastermind for all that, for sure.
and collaborating with you.
Yeah. Yeah. That add my 2 cents in.
One quick thing. Please remember to visit anthonymarinellimusic.com to sign up to our mailing list and receive exclusive free content. We'd like to keep building this community and give back to you. So now back to the video. I mean, things were blowing up for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then how did you end up in Georgia?
Well, we had a fire at the house in Calabasas. So then we were renting a house in Malibu, and I had them go get the board and bring it to Malibu in the tape machine so I can continue working there. And Warren G came to me and needed help with a song for MC Breed and Tupac, a song called Gotta Get Mine.
Well, you just segue right in.
He just had just a drum loop as well. And I heard it for a second, like, okay, I got it. And the bass line you hear on that song, just came up with it right then and right there. Then added some keyboard parts to it. Then we go to the studio, Valley Sound, I think it was, to finish the song. And then Breed was like, well, won't you come to Georgia with me to help me finish the album? So went out there, helped finish the album. And as I was done with the album, we were out at some club one night and met this girl who happened to be the secretary for Claude Austin, who's Dallas Austin's brother at the time. And they heard I was out there. Everybody in the industry heard I was in Georgia because the Chronic album had just came out.
Okay.
And was blowing up. So everybody's trying to find where that musician is that was playing on everything. And they heard I was out there. Publishers, all kind of people were looking for me. And so met Claude Austin. He brought me into the studio, DARP at the time.
And that's Dallas Austin's
Dallas Austin Recording Projects. Linked up with him and literally stayed out there for 7 years from that meeting on.
So to finish up the album turned into 7 years.
Yep. And then worked on Monica, Madonna, Michael Jackson, Sammy, hooked up with Too Short out there, did the George Clinton record, played on some Goody Mob and OutKast stuff. So
it was all coming through DARP?
All coming through DARP.
One at a time, or was it just coming at you?
Yeah, just
shotgun.
Yeah. Well, Monica was signed to Rowdy, Monica and Sammy. So they had a bunch of different producers, and everybody just pitched in and was pitching songs and stuff.
So were you writing on a lot of that too?
Oh yeah.
Oh, so everything.
Writing, production, yeah.
Writing, production, and playing.
Yeah.
Because they were looking to you to recreate some of that magic that.
Yeah. But then I'm out there trying to create a whole another thing. So basically learn pop production, R&B, and all that coming through DARP and stuff. So able to expand my production-ship.
So who were your early influences, and then I'm sure you were influenced by all those great artists too, right? Were they just
Oh yeah, definitely
taking you places?
Parliament, Funkadelic fans and
growing up?
Yeah, Otis Redding, Isaac Hayes, Curtis Mayfield, all the early Michael Jackson stuff, Stevie Wonder. And then, but when I was hooking up with Dre and them, I was into Jaco Pastorius, A Weather Report, Nathan East. I'm listening to bass players. Level 42, Mark King.
Okay.
Lewis Johnson, Brothers Johnson. Shuggy Otis. Sly and Family Stone. So, and then high school started getting into Led Zeppelin, The Who, The Stones, Hendrix. A little bit of Beatles, but mostly I was a big Zeppelin fan.
So you started out in soul and then you moved into rock.
Yeah, and that was because of busing. I grew up in Baldwin Hills, and then started going to Paul Revere Junior High School, which is in Brentwood. Well, I actually started going to Palisades Elementary, and then Paul Revere Junior High School, and then Palisades High School.
Pally.
And they're the ones who got me into all the rock stuff.
Okay, yeah, because that's a whole different scene over there.
Yeah.
And then I guess that you start putting it together, just naturally.
Yeah.
The things you like.
Yeah, exactly. And me being most musicians, not all, but most musicians are open and open-minded.
Yeah.
And I think if you're a great musician, you like everything. Whether it's country, reggae, jazz, classical, opera, I just like it all, and I try to take it all. And then not only music, but other arts, whether it be ballet or cooking, we were talking about earlier. I think most artists are just open and creative people, and they're just free.
I know. I think the deeper you get into it, you start finding that there's such a commonality between all the arts. They just start connecting.
Yeah.
It just happens in front of you. And then if you have the opportunity to sort of really dabble into them, you kind of integrate in some abstract way, even because you mentioned cooking, we both like cooking. Even that, the idea of getting the right ingredients to start with.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of how you produced the songs with Dre.
Yeah.
The ingredients were you, a beat, and you have your go-to way, and that gets you launched, and then where it goes is the creativity of the moment and the energy.
Yeah. It's like making an organic dish or some processed food. And we're farm to table.
Right.
Basically. And then I got great friends that are great winemakers too. My boy Greg Brewer from Brewer Clifton up in Santa Barbara. They're doing great wines up there.
So you're into that?
Yeah.
You got a good palate.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's been teaching me and letting me taste all the different varietals and taking me to the vineyards and showing me everything. So.
Wow. So I'm really curious about, like you were saying, how you learn from the soul musicians and the R&B musicians, right? And then integrating rock, like through the high school friends. But then what did you learn from Dr. Dre? And what did you learn from Dallas Austin and from the artists? Like, how did it lead? Because I want to know kind of how it got to Colin right now.
Yeah. With Dre from production, because I had never done production until I hooked up with him. So just seeing how records are put together, and simple but funky beats, like John Bottom. His beats were so freaking funky. And he was doing that stuff with rock stuff, and that's why Dre used that Zeppelin song on the Chronic album. My friend is the one who brought that album up there. And then he heard that.
Oh, he heard you guys playing it?
Yeah.
Isn't that how things are, though, right? Things catch your ear.
I know. And then with Dallas, songwriting, watching them put melodies together. Like he would hear a track of mine and literally write a song in like 10, 15 minutes. And wouldn't write it down. And we go to the studio and he just have the artist record it all.
But when you say a song of yours, was it complete or just elements?
For the most part, it would have like the bass, the keyboards, and the beat.
And then the lyrics and the melody, he would jump in and and it would just go like the same kind of way, though, very spontaneous, like you said, like farm to table, and then it's like basically from you to the top line stuff, and then to the artist, and then you're just hearing it all go down.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten set on the roads with India Davenport before, and we're sitting on the bench just like this, and I just start playing some stuff. She starts singing, and we just wrote a song just like that. It was a song Underneath the Red Moon on her, I think it was her first solo album.
I mean, I love hearing this. It's so much a throwback to early days of at least record making, because record making, in the earlier eras, like 40s and the 50s and even to the 60s, not until the 70s where it got into sort of album rock, and you could take like a year, 2 years, and Stevie spent a long time on his records. But even Stevie, from talking to Robert Margouleff in our interviews, they were just cranking out songs, like multiple songs a day.
Yeah.
And it was a really spontaneous process.
Yeah.
And I think like, jazz musicians, they'd carve out 3-4 songs a day and do the album in 3 days.
Yeah.
Go out for dinner.
Yeah.
Get some sleep if you could, or go out and play even. Right?
Exactly.
Come back the next day. And, I'd like to see more of that. Like, I love where we are with the technology.
Yeah.
And like the songwriting today, I find it to be very cinematic.
Yeah.
Even the new pop songs.
Yeah.
And the forms and the mixes, how like drum parts can drop out and there could be total silences.
Yeah.
And it's very evolving. It's like a film music, because it's never the same. It's not like the original cut and paste stuff that was happening a lot in the 80s.
Yeah.
They were great songs, but the production was kind of cut and pasty.
Yeah.
But now, this bringing back like what we're talking about the spontaneity of the live playing.
Yeah.
Very much looking forward to the development of that. We
were talking about that earlier, where people are starting to use live drums on their productions nowadays.
Yeah.
You can hear it in a lot of pop songs nowadays.
Exactly. And the spontaneity that happens, because like if you have a live drummer, how many times are you going to put it down.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
whereas with the drum machine and the loops, and you start to get into the micromanagement of
Yeah.
it, and it creates kind of its own new sound. But just I think where we are now is where we can sort of combine,
Yeah.
just the way you combined your early influences and then the rock
Yeah.
stuff, and then the experiences, professional experiences working with these great artists.
Yeah.
But they didn't mess with you. They
Yeah.
let you be spontaneous.
Yeah.
And they want to see what you could do
Right.
because they knew what they wanted. And
Right.
then they can always go back to that
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
to find the newness and to discover, like, you know, throwing a Zeppelin inspired beat into the mix.
Yeah.
You know, where great things happen. So, and now it's a lot about your new songs. You're writing
Yeah, I mean,
songs every day.
Back to what you were just saying, how they're really productive and stuff. Back in the day, Stevie cranking out, a few songs a day. My whole motto nowadays is try to write a song a day. And sometimes I won't leave the studio until that song is done. And it doesn't take long. Once I just say, okay, I'm about to get this song done, after a couple of hours, it's done. I mean, the song is written within, 30 minutes usually, but then you start layering and stuff like that. So after a couple of hours, it's done.
Well, it's a different process, right? The producing of the song. The
Yeah.
writings of the song is usually, it can be, I mean, not
Yeah.
always, but it can be really, come out really fast.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a great discipline. I had an opportunity to work with Stephen King on a movie called Graveyard Shift, and I asked him, how do you write so many books?
Yeah.
And it came down to very similar habit,
Yeah.
right? I'd call it a habit. 12 pages a day.
Yeah, yeah.
And you made sure he got his 12
Make
pages
sure
in.
you get it done.
If it comes out fast, you got the rest of the day.
Exactly.
If it's a little slower, but you want to get something done. So getting a sense of completion, I think, and not just leaving all your works hanging.
Yeah.
But then I have to ask you, what do you do with all those songs when you start stockpiling hundreds of songs?
Well, and the point where we're trying to, me and my guy, Curtis Bird, is the drummer, the whole point is that we're going to start putting them out. Some of them will find different artists to sing on them. Some of them maybe I'll sing. And at some point, we're going to start putting out a song a month, basically. We have enough songs where we can do that for the next few years.
Sounds like more than that.
Now we just need to
Years and years.
we got it. We want to get artwork tied to it. So whether it's photos, try to get some videos done, got to get them all mixed and mastered. So now we gotta start getting that process. Got part of it done, but I'm just in the groove. I just keep writing. But at some point, I gotta be like, okay, let's get this done, completely done, mastered and mixed, and get some artwork for it, and let's start putting it out. I want to get at least 3 or 4 in the can, and then we can start with that process.
Can you stay compartmentalized, and like when you're in production mode and you're thinking about artwork and how it's going to get distributed and all that, can you be in that mode and still be disciplined in writing a song a day, or do you have to kind of switch gears?
I think I got to switch hats.
Because it's a lot.
Yeah, I got to switch hats because, like, say I'm going to mix the song, then I'd be like, okay, go home, get some rest, come back tomorrow with my engineer hat on.
Yeah.
And now I'm mixing it. And now I'm going to just take my time, mix it, get it right. And then, after that, get some rest. Now let's think about artwork. Let's do some photos and video and all that. It's hard to stay in writing mode when you're thinking about all that other stuff. If something just happens to come out, it comes out.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to discipline yourself enough to go into the other field to get it done, because you got to think about it. People that do just that stuff, that's what they do. So you can't think you're going to just dibble and dabble and get the same results they're going to get. So you got to spend time on that just as well.
I'm really looking forward to hearing all this music coming from you.
Can't wait for you to hear it.
I'm really looking forward to it, and I want to try some of your cooking out one of these days.
We'll have a cook over.
I would definitely look forward to that. I saw some photos of Colin's food. If you go on his Instagram, there's some stuff that I would just really like. I can't even find the restaurants that have food that looks that good. So, well, thank you for really reaching out to me. It's just been, I feel like it's a real warm opportunity for you to come here and talk to us, set the record straight, meet you, and maybe do some stuff together.
Like us.
Really great. So thank you, everybody. Again, please like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us so that we can keep making these videos and enjoying your comments and having things like this happen. You know, it's just a great time in life, a great time in music.
Awesome.
Keep at it.